Hello everyone, I'm Steel.
And I'm Teal.
We're with Studio Blue.
Thank you for joining us for RPG Maker Theater. Kinda, sorta.
As part of the RPG Maker Festival, we are presenting something less about playing a game and more about tips and tricks on how to make a game.
Yeah!
And I want to give a huge shout out to Touch Fuzzy and RPG Maker Web for asking us to do this.
Thank you so much.
Alright, so the topic we're going over tonight is guiding the player through your level, but we're not going to be going over the idea of guidance. This is a technique that is used nowadays by modern developers, and it is called
Level wayfinding.
Right. So we're going to go over a quick PowerPoint presentation. It's very short. But then we're going to jump into RPG Maker MZ,
right?
And we're going to show you all examples. Now, we are monitoring chat, but I got to warn you guys, the window's off to the side. So we're going to be glancing.
Way to the side.
Yeah, we're going to be glancing over. But let's give a quick hello to people.
Well, we got Wrath of Wood, Jack, Manu GM.
And anyone else who
and
may
anyone else.
Of course, Touch, the man himself.
Of course.
All right, so let's do the presentation part. Let's kind of get through this. This is where we're going to kind of lecture at you all, but feel free to ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
And when we get to the part where we're showing you RPG Maker, we've even prepared a map specifically to answer your questions and show specific examples.
So let's jump right into this.
So the summary is going to be 3 basic talking points and then a physical presentation of how to.
Right. So we'll do an overview, and then we'll go over some cardinal do's and don'ts. We'll go through some wayfinding techniques, and then as Still said, we're going to actually do some of this.
Right. In real time.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about what wayfinding is. For those of you who've ever done any kind of dead reckoning navigation, whether on a boat or if you were in the Boy Scouts and you were walking around in a forest, or even if you know what AI wayfinding is, you may have heard of this. But this is wayfinding as it relates to level design. So what is wayfinding, Teal?
Wayfinding. The art of using level design to co-opt the experience of exploration with the player, where they're shown where to go next, while at the same time they're allowed to complete the level their way.
And Jack, it is fantastic to meet you guys as well. Steel and Teal of Studio Blue. We teach game making theory.
Yeah.
So this is the theory behind it. The reason that we have the definition written on screen the way we do is the old school of thought of level design is behind a strict interpretation of a critical path.
Yes, yeah.
Wherein the critical path is
it's very set, it's concrete, it's the player has to go here in this way in order to progress through your game.
Think of a red line going through a map, and if they don't follow the red line, then they can't get. And that is the old school thought. And this is what would have been taught to you if you had been learning game design in the early to mid-aughts, which is when I learned it.
Right.
This is how they used to teach it. And as time went on, they realized, wait, this is using some negative reinforcement instead of helping the player find their way.
Yes.
And the big word here is co-op the experience. The developer needs to create their game, their level in a way where they are working with the player for the most important thing in the world, which is the UX.
Yes. So we always talk about showing, not telling, and this is where you as a game dev get to branch out into the art of game dev.
Right. Game development is both a science and an art form.
Yes.
And we stress that in everything we do, and we want you, if you take nothing away from this tonight, learn that there is no perfect way to do anything, and it is much art as it is science.
Right.
All right, so
Let's go move forward. Okay, here we go.
These are the cardinal do's and don'ts. And again, if this seems like it's a little counterintuitive to what you've been learning, that's okay, because level design is not 1 + 1 = end goal. So do these things.
Yeah. So first of all, you want to show the player where they are when they start. This is orientation.
Right. Think of
very important.
Think of it like you're in a forest. You wake up and you don't know where you are, so you spend a couple of moments looking around, seeing that you're in a grove of trees, or maybe you're in a thicket. You see the stars above you, so you know it's nighttime. It's very dark, and the moon is in a crescent. All of this is orientation. This is where the player takes that moment to figure out where they are. It's just like in real life. And your job as the developer is to create that starting moment in a way where they know what's going on. Now, if you're building a game that's confusing, like they're waking up on psychotropes or they're half beaten up, that's fine. That's all part of the experience. That's part of orientation.
That is still orientation, though.
Right, because you're giving them a where and a situation.
Now, once you've set the orientation, then you need to give them an idea of their destination. Where do they go from here?
Right, and there's a myriad of ways to do this. We've covered this in previous classrooms, podcasts. You can have things such as views and vistas, where they wake up on a cliff and they see a castle off in the distance, or they emerge from the cave and they're not always waking up.
Right.
Or, you know, if they're stumbling because they were beat up, the camera's right behind them pointing in a direction. You know, all of those, that's like guiding lines as opposed to vistas.
Or something as simple as having a lamppost with a light shining down on a road sign.
A landmark.
A landmark, and an arrow points that way to town.
Right. Anything that gives them an inkling of where to go. And again, if you're thinking to yourself, well, what if my character wakes up and they're in a confusing situation where they know what's going on? Well, you still need to offer them some kind of a destination, even if it's the camera behind the shoulder, even if it's the direction the sprite is facing.
Yeah.
You know, so it would be a unfair thing that if you know their destination is south, they wake up in a dark room. It's all black everywhere around them.
Right.
Please don't do that. But they have to go south and they're facing north. That's unfair.
Ooh, yeah, don't do that.
That's setting them up.
Yeah.
But if they're facing south and then they choose to go north, that's on them.
Because now we're talking about freedom.
Right.
Let them find their own way to the destination.
Navigation. We are all hardwired. Every living person is hardwired to find a way to navigate on Earth. You know, you can say anything about magnetic lines, the inkling of knowing where north is. You know, even if you have no idea where you are, we're hardwired biologically to try to find a way from point A to point B. Even if we're ignorant of what awaits us at point B. So that navigation is that freedom to find our way.
Right.
So regardless of what your character is, regardless of their situation, regardless of where they start, where you want them to go, they need to be able to navigate to that conclusion. So this is the do's. This is what you want to do when you're designing guidance in your level or wayfinding.
Right.
Now here's the don'ts.
Okay, the don'ts. First of all, let's talk about the assumptions.
Right.
If you assume that the player cannot find their way, you are
making mistakes.
You are insulting the player.
Yeah. Do not assume the player is stupid. A lot of old school critical path techniques would make the assumption that the player has no idea where they're going. For lack of a better term, assume they're dumb. That is not good.
That's not good.
As Teal said, don't insult the player's intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, even a game as simple as Super Mario Brothers tells the player knows they have to go right.
Yeah.
They don't need a giant arrow pointing to the right to where Princess Peach is not in that castle. So don't assume the player can't find their way.
And on the same token, don't trick the player into going where you want them to go.
Right. There used to be a lot of techniques in older school level design, specifically called guidance, by the way, where you would give them the illusion of choice. You would literally trick them into going in any direction you want. You could, for example, have a door that's locked, marked exit, you know, and then that door locked, marked exit there's no way to get around it, and they spend aimless amounts of time until they see an arrow pointing to the right. You know, you're kind of giving them like this nudge, like, hey, dummy, go right.
Right.
You don't need to trick them. You don't need to use the very first Metroid was pretty bad like that, where they would do a lot of, you know, gotchas.
Yes.
You know, and you can have some. Metroidvania is a huge genre. You can have some. Metroid Dread's a great example of what to do.
Right.
You know, Bloodstained was also good as well.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, you know, you can have a Metroidvania style game. But don't trick them. Don't treat your player like they're idiots.
Right. And the last, don't, the last don't do this is you guiding the player instead of them guiding themselves.
Right.
Remember we talked about allowing them the freedom to find their way? Let them find their way.
Yeah. Now all of this does not mean make an open world style map. You don't have to do that.
No.
You can have your dungeon where they're going through this dungeon and there's twisty passages and some doors are locked and some doors are not, and they have to find blue keys and red keys. That's fine. You can have a town where, you know, it's just they're going in and they're exploring because the orientation is the start of town. The destination is the mayor's office, and the navigation is however they darn well please to get there. So you don't put yourself in a box thinking that we're talking about don't design a level with well-defined places to go and a single exit. You can have that single exit.
Sure.
You just don't want to railroad them.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to get to that exit.
Yeah. Don't do what Final Fantasy 13 did for the first half of the game. We pick on it a lot in our streams because Final Hallway 13 is not a good example. A lot of people stopped playing the game. I stopped playing the game.
Because it was just one long hallway.
Yeah. Jack. Okay, so let's see what Jack says.
Jack says they've fallen for that in RPGs and all sorts of games in the past. Yeah.
We've all done it. We've all committed.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's no one is guilt free here, either as a player or as a developer. It is what it is. We're here to kind of say there's other ways. There's the best way.
Yeah, because game design evolves.
Right. It's
a living thing. It evolves, and we're so much more knowledgeable about the player experience now than we were 20 years ago.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to move on. Now, these are the wayfinding techniques we're going to go over tonight. Teal and I have a printout, which we're going to go a little bit more into depth here, but then when we get into the part where we show you what to do, we're going to go over each of these.
Yeah, so
we'll talk about them now.
We'll talk about them, and then we'll show you.
First is...
the psychology.
All right.
So people form mental maps to kind of conceptualize the space that they're in.
Right. Again, we're hardwired to do that.
And these mental maps have several elements that compose them.
Right.
The one you most often think of is what we call a path.
Right.
These are like the roads that you use to move around.
Think of a path as a visual way to go. Another is an edge, which is something that is visible or invisible, which is a boundary. A fence is an edge.
A fence is an edge.
A cliffside is an edge.
Yeah.
So just think of it. When you're thinking of paths, don't think of a road. Think of a clearly marked direction. Lampposts on either side of you, going through the pathway of darkness.
Yeah.
Is a road, and the area between them, the invisible lines created between each of the signposts on your right and your left are edges.
Those are edges.
Doesn't have to be something visible and physical.
Right. And then the next thing you think about is districts. We call them districts, which these are just areas that share similar characteristics.
Right. Those are your, as on screen, the quantifying zones of interest. So you're saying this area here is a clump of trees. Okay, that's a district. This area here is a riverbed. That's a district. Yeah. And you could also be literal in your interpretation. A small area of stores in a city, like a strip mall. Yeah. That's a district.
That's a district.
A park is a district. So when you're designing your levels and you want to help Wayfind, think of that. Organization helps.
Yes.
The psychological mental map helps. We have nodes.
And then nodes. Nodes are strongly, really clearly defined intersection points of roads.
Right.
These are like squares, the town square. It's like junctions.
Right. A place where you would cross over from the strip mall to the park. Mm-hmm. That's a node.
That's a node.
So when a person sees those districts, sees those nodes, has the edges defining, mentally in their head, they're saying, I'm transitioning from a place of commerce to a place of recreation. It's automatic. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
The player does it for you. And then the last we talked about with the signposts.
It's landmarks.
Yeah.
These are easily identifiable. They're used for point referencing. Generally, these are physical objects.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about psychology, let's go into let's talk a little bit about Dead Reckoning, by the way, kind of revisit that for a second.
Right.
So Dead Reckoning is just a method for guessing and tracking where you are when there are no landmarks available. Again, this is something we're all biologically hardwired. And in order to perform Dead Reckoning with your player, or allow your player to do Dead Reckoning, you just have to have, as we talked about earlier, that orientation and a general destination.
Yeah.
And they can extrapolate the rest. So don't think you have to have landmarks. You don't have to. All you have to do is give them point A and a general point B, and then you use the rest of this stuff to create that psychological mental map.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
Okay, let's move on to strategies. So for the strategic guidance, you want to use your mental understanding of how navigation works.
Right.
You want to show the player where to go to find the things within your game world.
Right. For example, and these are many, and we're going to go over as many as we can in the practical part of this.
Yeah.
You can have tracking, which is relying on directional signs. So this is your sign that says go here to get to Windhelm.
Right.
Go here to get to the castle in the center of the labyrinth. LOL.
And then there's route.
Right.
The route is simply following the rules that are given, such as having a pre-planned route before the journey ever started.
Right. So, for example, that would be if you're in like Breath of the Wild style game, where you have the entirety of the country of Hyrule, and Zelda gives you a map.
Yeah.
And the map shows roughly where you're at and roughly where the castle is.
Yes.
That's a route.
That's a route.
So a track would be a sign pointing towards Hyrule Castle, while the map giving you a general direction.
Yeah.
That's
the route.
That's the routing.
And then you're going to use what we call educated seeking.
Right.
That's using past experiences to draw a logical conclusion on where to go.
Right. So, for example, we're talking about the districts earlier. If the district of your city has that strip mall in one area and then nearby has the park, then the player is going to be able to remember that.
Yeah.
So then, then when you have a person later on in the story, maybe on top of a building, say, "Hey, I'll meet you in the park," and then they exit. If the player finds themselves around the strip mall, they'll remember.
They'll remember where that park is.
Right. So that is an educated guess based off of, or educated using past experience, not an educated guess. My bad.
Educated using past experiences.
Right.
And that leads us also to inference.
Right.
Inference is you apply your expectations of where things are to infer where you're going.
Right. So now we're talking about a place they've never been to before. So, for example, let's use our urban example here.
Right.
So someone says, "Hey, I need you to go to the fortune teller. They're on the eastern. They're to the east of the park."
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't say where to go. That just tells them to go to the park. The player remembers that education.
Right.
And then from there, they're able to infer, I need to go to the park and go east. And then they can go to the east, and when they go into a district, a zone, or whatever you want to call it, that has, things like hints, they can go, okay, I think this is where we need to go. Let's look around for something that indicates this is the fortune teller.
Correct. And it could be a sign or
right.
a bunch of colored lights or whatever.
Right. A musical change. Remember, cues don't have to be visual.
That's true.
They can be aural, so maybe they hear, da na 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 na, which is music they know is the fortune teller.
Right.
That kind of thing. What's next?
Oh, well, screening. Screening is when the player systematically searches the area for helpful clue. There may not be any, but this is what they're screening to see where the clue is. So in the fortune teller example, they get to that district.
Right.
Now they're looking for some kind of clue to where the fortune teller could be. They're looking for a sign. They're looking for incense, smoke blowing in the wind, something.
That oral clue, hearing the music.
Hearing the music, right.
Like that. Because if you're using sound properly, you can have sounds attenuate and get louder as they get closer to a goal.
Yeah.
So with screening, they're looking, actively seeking for something. Okay. And then we have aiming.
Right.
That is to find a perceptible target and to move in that specific direction. That could be as abstract as, again, going hot cold with the sounds,
right,
or as direct as a quest marker or something on your compass. Could talk about Skyrim. One of my favorite games to play is great with its quest markers. You know where to go.
Yeah.
Turn them on. You know where to go. All right. Now we talked about maps earlier.
We talked about the map reading.
But you can actually have a map.
Oh yeah, you can
actually include a map. There is nothing wrong with a map or a mini map of your level. That also helps. Again, all of these tools are used together to create this idea, this mental map that psychologically they've developed to guide them to wherever they're going. And with map reading also comes compasses.
Yes, the compasses.
Right.
So you can navigate yourself with what we call the figurative compass.
Yeah.
Such as, using the sun. Using the sun.
Sun's always in the east.
The sun, right. Or the stars. Or even, that if you were in the Boy Scouts, that you look on the south side of a tree to find the moss.
Right, exactly. It could be a compass in your hand.
Yeah.
That actually always points to magnetic north, or it could be a HUD compass.
It could be.
So again, there's no one way.
There's no one way to do this, no.
And then last, and this is the fun one, social navigation.
Right. You're following the crowd.
Yeah.
A crowd of NPCs, for example.
Right.
Or a crowd if you're playing a co-op game. You're following the crowd of other players, and you're learning from this crowd's actions.
Right. So a really good thing you can do in RPG Maker is set up the event of the person. Okay, so have a person looking for or heading to the fortune teller.
Yeah.
Now, the air quotes lazy way to do this is just to have them randomly moving.
Yeah.
A more intelligent way would be when you talk to them and they say, "Hey, I'm going to the fortune teller. I hope they have something good." Then they move in the direction of the fortune teller, and then they stay in a small little region near the fortune teller.
Near the fortune teller.
And then after the player goes to the fortune teller, if you wanted to add life to the world, you could then have that sprite, that NPC, go into the fortune tellers.
Yeah.
So, or if you want to be really direct and smack them with it, you could say, "Hey, I'm going to the fortune teller. I hope hope they tell me something happy today," and they go right inside. That's also social navigation.
That is, yeah.
Literally follow that dude. Okay, and then the last part are signs. Signs.
Lots of signs.
Signage theory is what it's called, but we're just going to call it signs. And these are using signs. Literal, suggested, help the player identify routes and destinations. Again, culturally speaking, since the dawn of history, we've used signs to visually represent where the F to go. This is normal for humans.
So you have several different types of signs. The first type we want to talk about is informational. These, as the name suggests, provides useful information on the place where the user is, such as free Wi-Fi here, or here's the opening hours.
Right, so a sign doesn't have to be, this is the barber shop.
Yeah.
It could have the barber's pole and then to open from 8 to 4.
Right.
So you could also have a directional sign, which is just an arrow pointing in a direction, like, again, this way to Windhelm.
Yes. Identification signs helps the user recognize where they currently are. These are generally placed at entrances of buildings, hospitals, parks.
If you're in a fantasy world, the blacksmith sign would be like an anvil, potion, alchemist sign would be like a potion. Weaponsmith would be like, a sword and a shield, that kind of thing. So you don't even have to have words. Right.
Or when you enter a district, a little text comes up and says, marketplace.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
And then finally, regulatory signs provide contextual information on what you can and cannot do.
Sure.
So they could say, no parking, no dogs allowed, no trespassing. So again, all of these things together, and that was the end of the list, guys. All of these things, when added together, allow the player to find their own way through your level instead of you forcing it down their throat.
Right.
All right, so we're about to go into this. Let's say hello to the peoples.
Okay. So we've got a human being. Viatori Tran. Hey there.
And we have a happy Valentine's Day from the Jack. Happy Valentine's Day to
Happy
everybody.
Valentine's Day.
We celebrated ours last night.
Yeah.
All right, so let's actually jump into the how-to. So let me go ahead and poop out of that and go into RPG Maker. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Okay, so we've provided a bunch of blank maps. We're going to go over psychology. We're going to go over several variations. We're going to go over some strategies, some signs, and then we'll put this last one here to specifically build stuff for you guys. Now, these maps are going to be janky. They're going to be ridiculous. They're not going to look good.
Oh, no.
Because we're just showing you for instances. So
Right.
Forgive our awful map making. All right, so the first thing are paths. So let's just go ahead and build our janky forest.
Okay.
This is the forest of jank. Let's see, where's the trees? I gotta find them. It's been a while since.
Yeah,
I've
it's been
done
a while
that.
since we've been
been a hot
on
minute.
the palette.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So let's build our little. We should build our trees. Where's our path? Okay. Let's go a path. Let's just start with our path here. Okay. So a path is literally that. It is a visual example of where to go. This is not if you don't go here, you fail the level.
Right.
This is just a visual example. Oops. I'm gonna take it off of there. So if you build a path in your forest, which we're gonna build our forest. Don't worry, guys. You're literally just building that.
There
It's
you go.
just
Yeah.
go in this direction. But remember, paths were created to provide clear direction where to go. So if you're traveling like the highway to Rome, all roads lead to Rome.
Right.
They built these so that people who are traversing can find them. That's not the only way to get there. But having said that, this is a clear indicator. So if your player starts here and they know they have to get here, they could, if they choose, follow that road. But they don't.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. You can have your edges, which your edges would be stuff like this. It could be a visible edge stating, okay, you can't go past this area. This area here is off limits.
Right.
So as you can see in this example, we have, well, we're literally telling them, no go.
Yeah.
No go.
You can't go there.
Right. So when they go in these directions, they reach a hard stop.
Yeah.
They can't get here. Now, again, level design is an art form. So you can put one of these things here. Again, janky as heck, if you want this to be an exploratory level. Invisible edges of the map, they are useful. You can have them. You probably should avoid them. So maybe have a little bit of this
Yeah.
and a little bit of this. And of course, you don't want to make it boxy, so you would add in some details here, that kind of thing. Just to give it some level of naturalism, because nature does not usually go in a straight line.
No.
Okay. But you see what I'm doing here is I've created this is part of a path. This is wayfinding. They know that this is that they need to go this way. They can figure that part out. I don't have to tell them anything.
That's right. They know they have to end up in the northeast corner.
Right. But here's going to be another example of an edge. Now we're in nature right now. So here's another example of an edge.
There we go. Yeah.
This is an edge. We're thinking, well, no, that's a lake. No, that's an edge. This is an edge. They know they can't go there. Again. I have Zephyr's playing RPG Make. Sorry guys, I have my Steam on. And again, you can go a couple of steps and say, well, maybe there's a dock here. Okay. And that leads to a new area. They get on a boat.
They get on a boat and go to an area. But again, that's an edge.
This is still an edge. And this is a path. This is technically a path. Let me go ahead and pop on one of the...
Yeah, let's get one of those.
Get one of the bridges, if I can remember where to get them. Here we go. Bridge. Boom. So there we go. So there's your dock. And when the boat is there, they can go here. This is an edge. This is a path. This is a path right here. They can extrapolate. Getting onto here will take them to a new area.
Right.
You don't need to have a guy saying, get on the boat to go to the island. You can just have the boat here.
Just have the boat there.
You can have the boat there and pop,
Yeah.
they'll get on it.
They'll get on it.
If you have a guy there, have him be the ferryman. Say, hey, I'll take you to the island for, $5.
Right.
That kind of thing. That's just, these are paths and edges. I am very good at drawing, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
This is artwork right here.
Uh-huh.
This is the absolute artwork. Oh, hold on. Let me move that so I can read what Touch said. He says.
Okay, Touch says, on a side topic, I commented before about from an aesthetic standpoint, ignoring the actual point of the tutorial, varying your edges always makes maps look better.
100%,
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, especially if you're in a natural place like
Yes.
this nature biome.
Yes.
You seriously don't want to have this whole straight edge on the side.
You want to try to avoid this monster right here.
Yeah.
Nature doesn't usually...
Nature doesn't do that.
Nature doesn't usually do straight lines. They usually do clumpy crap all over the place.
Right.
But again, we're continuing to teach you all about edges and paths. If you notice, the trees are kind of around here in different areas, and you could actually take your trees, and you could have your trees be kind of like this, so that it subconsciously leads the player. This is okay. Again, this is a path.
Yeah, that's a path.
This is a path. This is a path. Now let's talk about districts. So right now we have, this is a district. This cliff area here's a district. This lake area here's a district. They're going to remember mentally that a lake is in this area.
You're right.
And
With
that-
a dock.
Yeah, with a dock, and that a cliff with a ladders is in this area. You could put a clump of trees here with a grove, and you could have in your grove a hole in the ground, or actually just give a well, because Teal likes wells.
I love wells.
So there
Thank
you go. This is a district.
Yeah.
So when you're mapping out your area, you can have this large clump of trees with a well in the middle, and you have it in relation north of the lake. So you have your lake, you have your clump of trees with the well. The player's going to infer. They're going to figure that.
They're going to figure that out.
They're
Yeah.
going to figure that part out on their own. Nodes would be intersection points. So here's a good intersection point. Go here. Boop. And then it just stops.
Yeah.
This is a node. This tells them there's something in this direction.
Yep.
Again, so what you're doing is you're not treating the player like an idiot. You're instead letting the player figure things out for their own.
Yeah.
And then finally, a landmark. Let's have a landmark. And let's have a landmark that does not work at all, but is adorable.
There we go. There's a snowman.
There's just, or is it? Yeah, it's a frost-covered scarecrow. So this frost-covered scarecrow is a landmark, but what you would do here is you could provide information either visually, and they're just seeing it, or you're providing a tell. Go to where the snow-covered scarecrow is, or they could see it, and when they see the snow-covered scarecrow, like I say, it's a really large map, and they're traveling through the forest, and boom, there's the snow-covered scarecrow. They're like, that's an important thing. In fact, what you could do is put the snow-covered scarecrow right here, so that when they see it, they know they're approaching the district or the grove. There you go.
There you go.
So what we just did was we just used the 5 psychological pieces to, and again, this is janky as heck, but it's to kind of give you an example of how it works.
Yeah.
We can now show you how it works in a more urban center, more urban section here. So let's go ahead and add in some concrete, because we are a concrete-driven society.
Yeah,
There's
concrete.
There we go. That's not concrete. That is a thing. Okay, there we go. There we go. Boop. All right, there we go. So there's our concrete.
Lots of concrete.
Lots of concrete. All right, and let's start building some buildings that are going to look ridiculously terrible.
Absolutely.
Here we go. This is how not to design building, guys.
Yeah.
This is how not to design building. Okay, so here is a building here. So look at this amazing skill that I have. Here is a building here, one here, and this can be a continuation of said building.
Yeah.
Put that right there, and right there. And this is not level off properly at all, and I'm going to get yelled at by Toasty, so put that right there. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
So there's my beautiful building.
There's lovely buildings.
We'll work more on that later. Okay,
Yeah.
So again, pathfinding. Paths. This is a path. This is a path right here. Boop, 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 boop. That's a path.
That's a path.
This is a path. This is a node. This could technically be a node. This is also another path.
But the right center where the paths intersect, that's a node.
That's a node, yeah. Here's a path. So let's say they got to get to these gates. So you put them right here. Here's our timepiece. It's going to represent where we start right there. And this is a path. These buildings, these are your edges. These are edges. This is an edge right here. It's a physical barrier. Now, we talked earlier about they don't have to be physical barriers, but physical barriers exist. Also, edges don't have to be a solid wall.
They can be.
That's an edge too.
That's an edge.
They can see whatever malarkey is on the other side of that wall, like a tank, because that's how tanks work. And but they know now that's an edge.
Yeah.
So there you go. This right here is an edge. They know they can't go here. Maybe this is a point of interest. Heck, maybe, just maybe, this is someplace they need to go, and they're going to look for, where's the staircase? There we go, here's a hatch.
They look for a hatch, yeah.
They look for a hatch. So again, this is all part of the wayfinding. The player can move along this path, see this edge, see this point of interest here, see that, and know from their quest they have to get the tank.
Yeah.
So they now know they have to find a way to get there. That's a destination.
That's a destination.
That's a destination. Districts. Again, districts are, something that you can have. So we have our wonderful looking building district here. We're going to have our square building districts that happen to have signs over here. And we'll go ahead and say that these signs represent this district. So that's a district.
Yeah.
Right here. This is a district. This is a place where the buildings all have the same sign. Or you could have different signs if you wanted to be actually a good designer. But these are districts. This right here is just a grouping of areas where they're going to see the similarity being neon signs are everywhere.
Right.
All right. And then nodes would be, like, for example, let's see, where is all right, so we're going to place some cracks here. This will be another district. This is the area is really horrible and has been
because
ignored.
The tank has been practicing shelling this area.
So a node is this thing here. They know if they go south, they go to the really horrible area. They know if they go here, they go to the most masterful building area. And they know here is where the neon signs are. So again, this area here is just telling them that they're going to enter one district or another. And then a landmark can be as simple as the one tree.
There we go, the one tree.
The one tree.
The one tree.
Yep. Let's kind of catch up a bit a little here.
Okay. Yeah, we're talking about the Command and Conquer stealth tanks.
Right.
Yep.
That's not how they work. But again, as you can see, we're using a psychological map, a psychology to have them build a mental map.
Yes.
Boom,
yeah.
Boom, boom. There we go. That's absolutely wonderful. Now it's Windows. There we go. So there we go. We have our absolutely beautiful urban center right here.
There it is.
All right, and now we'll use the same concept
for an interior.
An interior, because it's all the same. The concepts never change, guys. It's just the execution that changes. All right, so let's make our interior.
There we go.
Our boxy universe right here, because boxes are a great way to design everything.
This is perfect game design right here.
This is the best. This is the best. Eat your heart out, everybody. We're gonna have bricks because this is aesthetically gorgeous.
Right.
All right, so now we have our boxy map right here that we're totally not gonna keep as a box. All right, so again, in the interior, your paths can be very stark.
Yeah.
Like, for example, here's our entrance to our house. Super stark entrance, extremely easy to see where everything is going.
Yes.
You enter into this place and you know that you're going to reach from here, from this entrance. This is a hallway. You have to go this way.
Yeah.
Here's clearly defined edges. These edges are here. These edges aren't going anywhere. These are walls. Unless you're playing a game that's, allows you to break walls, please somebody do that. They're not going through here. And they also know that if they go north, they're going to see this wall here, and here's where you're going to find the shrine that every single RPG Maker house has at the end of a hallway.
Right.
Right. This is canon to RPG Maker right here. Right. In fact, we're going to put some pretty pillars right here just to show how god tier canon this is.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah. This is stellar design, guys.
Yes.
Oh, God, I'm messing it all up. Okay, we'll just have our one angel statue right
We'll just have the one.
One angel statue. There we go. Still absolute canon. Okay. But having said that, let's say they enter into this part of the house over here, and this part of the house over here has a chair. This part of the house over here has a coffee table, and this part over here has one of 10 million bookcases.
Right.
Okay, where we'll put a little marker here because we're going to put a chest here later on, or they can break a pot and get a potion or something. this is still an edge right here. They can't cross this. This is a barrier.
Right.
This is an edge. This is funneling them through the exploration into this area here where a bunch of paintings are on the floor for some reason. But it's still that's an edge. You know, you can put a cupboard in this direction. You're creating a path. This is an edge.
And in the center here, that's a node.
Yeah, this is your node. Here's a node. Here's a node because they can go south.
They can go south.
Right. These are all things to direct the player. And let's take a look at districts. Okay, so here we have the masterfully drawn library district where they can sit around and they can read all the lore of your world.
Yeah.
These are all books here. These are all books here. We'll put one bookcase here so they don't actually clip that. But these are where all the books in your game are right here. This is a district. This area right here is a district because they know in this area, here's your books.
Yeah.
We're going to put I'll make this a little bit more. So we'll kind of section this off a little better. Again, absolutely great design. And here's going to be where the conservatory is.
The requisite piano that is in every house. This
is a requirement. If your game does not have this, you're doing it wrong. And here's stools where the person can sit when they're making beautiful music.
Right.
I know that's a table, but I'm pretending it. Here's a stool. Here's a stool. And here's a fire.
Here's the big fireplace.
Right, that all RPG Maker places have.
Yep.
Because fireplaces suck right there into the wall. But again, this is a district.
Yes.
This is a place we can put more furniture in here if we want to. We can put, a bunch of pretty stools sitting around a table where people can play cards. So this is a recreational area. This is a district.
Yeah.
This is a district without hard walls everywhere. This is a district with hard walls everywhere. And then you can have your landmark, which, because we talked about nodes earlier.
Right.
You could have your landmark. Let me see. Where's a good place to put a landmark? Obviously, the evil throne right here. There's a landmark.
There you go.
Or the evil landmark right here. The evil throne in the middle of the room. Or here's where you put the butler. I mean, the landmark can be anything. But this landmark, when they enter into there, they know they're in the evil bad guy's house with his fantastic architect.
Right.
So the whole point of this is that, again, you're using psychology. They walk in here, they see this, oh, we're in the bad guy's house. They come here, oh, we can go in different directions. Okay, I think I have to go play the piano in order to open up the secret passage. All right, so here's this district here. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so I remember now this is where all the lore is. I'll come back later when I want to read the lore. And then their path leads them down here, and they're like, oh, there's a piano. There's our destination.
Right.
So again, we just used the psychology to help people find their way.
Yeah.
Would you play my game? I'll put it up for free. Leonardo would be jealous. Yes, Leonardo da Vinci would be very, very
absolutely.
Jealous. Very, very jealous. Okay, we're going to go over some strategies here,
Okay,
guys.
now we're going to hit strategies.
Yes. All right, so we're going to go over. Now, again, we're gonna have our beautiful map. We should just copy our beautiful map.
We should
Copy this beautiful, perfect map.
This map is going to win awards.
This is going in the next game jam right here. Okay. So we'll go over specific strategies now. So tracking is very, very simple. It's a sign. You're just building a sign. There's a sign right here.
There's a sign. Road sign.
Boom.
There.
Boom. This way to the city, this way to the docks. That's a sign. All you're doing is providing a track.
Right.
A route would be you having, for example, what is good for... We're going to use this as an event placeholder, guys. This is because... actually, no, just go to the event layer. Lol. You could go right here, and you could have an auto run event right here, and you would call this "Where Do I Go?" and it runs on an auto run, which is here, and then you can have text box: "I should go to the lake," and that's all it does. And then it runs forever because I didn't actually kill the event.
Right.
But when they enter into this map, they're going to get that comment. And then from there, following that rule, they're going to start planning their route. They're going to say, okay, I need to look for signs of a lake. That's route tracking.
Right.
Educated seeking would be, and it's a little hard to visually represent this, guys, would be if they've been to this map before and they know there's water, or even better yet, the map below this, the map to the south of this one, has part of the lake.
That's it.
That educated guess, they're going to know, wait a minute, the water in the southern map was to the east of. So the educated guess.
The educated guess would say, I need to go east.
There's the dock. There's the dock. Inference would be, instead of a lake, there was just a stream. You know, let's say that they're to the east. They're over here. They're on the east. They're on the eastern map, and there's just a stream heading this way. That would be inference. Well, a stream usually dumps into a lake.
Right.
So, boom, there's inference. And if you see that they're all kind of lumping together and bleeding into each other, they are. They are. We can say, here's screening, here's education, here's inference, but they do bleed into each other. They coalesce into a single experience.
Because your map is going to be very organic.
Yeah.
The best maps are.
Yes, they are, and they should be. Aiming would be finding a perceptible target, so this is where they would see your forever snow-covered scarecrow.
The scarecrow.
The one that Emma Frost sneezed on. And then they would know, okay, well, here's the landmark that leads me to the grove of trees with Teal's Well.
Right.
You know, all of that. Map reading is just them picking up a map. You know, it's just picking up a map, and the compassing is would be, hey, to the east is a quest marker leading to the well.
Yeah.
That's compassing. So map reading and compassing, again, not easy to show on a map on an RPG Maker map, but you would build a map with a, you know, here's your area, here's a lake. It can be as hand drawn as you want, or it can be something a cartographer did. And there's an X right above Teal's Well. Or you could have your compass with your quest marker here. All of this allows the player to find their own path. You're not saying you have to go here, and then you have to go here, and then if you don't go here, you lose.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You're giving them the chance to experience it, because they may want to go over here and see what's on your cliffside.
Absolutely.
And they can spend time. And remember, rewards, guys. Reward your players for exploration. It can be a chest with an item. It could be an NPC who talks to them, a piece of lore, environmental story.
It could be a beautiful view.
Yes. Environmental storytelling is your best friend.
Yeah.
All right. So we can move on over to the urban.
Yeah, we
center.
go. Urban.
Go back to our absolutely god tier city. This is where it goes right here. Boop.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So again, we're going to go over each one. Track following would be. All right. So we're going to put a guy right here.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's going to say, this is going to be NPC dude. And we'll just, we'll obviously make him read, because, you know, he's a minor character.
Read.
Very minor character. And he would say something along the lines of, hey, I think there is a secret passage to the tank. Exclamation part 111. So that's the best way to write.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that is, he's tracking. He's giving you exact directions. You know,
he is.
Route would be the player seeing this, and then maybe seeing that. That's route.
That's
planning.
a route planning.
So you talk to Reed, the NPC. You see this here, you see this here, and you start putting 2 and 4 together. And that's route planning right there. Educated seeking would be, you know, these neon signs over here create like a glow, and you can hear some music. Those cues we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Right.
You know, and we talked about earlier. This would be, hey, I know there's neon makes a glow. I know that. I know neon has a hum. So I'm going to start going in this direction because that's where the neon district is. And then same thing with, screening, inference, education, pretty much the same idea. Inference is, again, neon's glowing. The bar is going to be the hot cat. So,
right, which it's going to be in the neon district.
The neon district.
Right.
You're inferring based off of maybe a previous city had their bar, the Happy Pug, be in neon.
Yeah.
So they now need to go to the hot cat, and they're going to look for the neon district. That's inference.
Yes.
So again, going through every last one of these that we talked about earlier, it doesn't matter if it's outside, inside. Speaking of inside, we're going to go there next. Doesn't matter what it is. The techniques are virtually the same.
There we go.
Man, that's a bad map.
Woo!
We need to go to a dungeon. Okay, let's do a dungeon.
Let's do a dungeon.
Let's make a dungeon. Let's make a dungeon with rocks. Here we go. Rocks. Again, top tier game making right here. Top
Lots of rocks.
Top tier.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have our entrance over here. There we go. And we're going to have our exit over here.
Uh-huh.
And top tier game making, guys.
Yeah,
Top
this
tier.
is it.
This is Studio Blue shows you the way. We'll catch up on chat while I get this framework ready. Anything going on over there?
KB just joined us.
Cool, KV, good to see you. Good
Yep.
to see you.
And we have Chris Jewell as well.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Chris, we're using MZ. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're totally using MZ.
Yeah.
And then we've got a Nerd Mansion.
And
Hey,
Nerd Mansion.
All right, so the rules aren't different if it's a dungeon than if it's a house than if it's anything else. You don't want to railroad the player. You don't want the player to think that if they don't go in a certain direction, they're going to lose. You obviously don't want to guide them down long, winding passages to dead ends that have absolutely nothing. I mean, that's the stuff that we go over in every game we play on this channel.
Right.
You know, that's just stuff you just want to avoid. That's at this point, I would say it's a given. It's a given. If you've been following us forever, you would know. But now that we got this fantastic place built, it's completely unpopulated. Here's where you start. Here's your orientation. Here's your destination. So now we're going to go there in different areas.
Yeah.
So here's another method of tracking. We've had the player say something. We've had an NPC say something. Now we're going to try something within the engine itself, which is zoom to exit. So in this one, another auto run button, you're going to have the camera, which watch me not find it, because I haven't been on this in a while. There's camera, move camera, scroll map, there we go. So you could scroll the map to the right, 20, and scroll the map up 18, wait for completion so that the two will run in parallel, and when the player enters the map, it'll go whoop, and then you would put events to make it go back. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I don't need to do that. All right. But that's tracking. You're showing them. You're showing them. And actually, this also counts as route because you're giving them a overview of the dungeon.
Yes, you are.
You know.
So they can pre-plan their route.
Yeah. So again, think of it also. Final Fantasy XIV does this really well. When you enter into a dungeon, it actually pans through. The camera goes through the dungeon very cinematically with the name of the dungeon appearing and the music playing, and then it goes to the players. But that actually gives you FF14 tells you a little bit about how to get through the dungeon. It shows you a little bit of it while you're going through, but also gives you a great cinematic opening. So that is how we would have tracking and routing. Go ahead.
And I would say aiming. The example of aiming is you're finding. Let's say that you find the big rock.
Yeah.
There's a big rock right here.
Let me do a big rock.
Big rock.
Big rock. The biggest rock. The biggest rock we can come
there
across.
We go. Huge rock.
This is so huge.
Right there.
Right here.
So,
huge rock. We'll put the rock right there.
Yeah. So they know that...
Let me get a gray rock. It's easier to see. Gray rocks are easier. Boom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
If they head to that rock,
right,
they know they're going in the right direction.
Right. Because when you panned earlier, this rock, this really big, massive rock was drawn to their attention.
Yes.
Another one here would be also the gate. Like here's the evil gate.
Yep, evil gate.
So they saw the evil gate. No, the evil gate's not close enough. They saw the evil gate. So
there we go.
Here's your points of interest. They saw when you were doing the initial pan. They now know to look for these. They can infer based off an aim for those.
Yes.
And then when they get there, they know, hey, they're traveling correctly through your dungeon. And the same thing with before, map reading. You give them a map of the dungeon or mini map.
That's right.
And they can kind of go through. And if you give them a compass that reminds them constantly that this is to the northeast, and then when they're here, it's to the east.
It's to the east.
They can find their way through. Again, with every single one of these tactics, you're allowing the player to figure out how to get through without pushing them through like they're an idiot.
Right.
Because you don't ever want to treat your player dumb. And then I really don't know why I put signs here because, I mean, honestly, guys, we can go over the signs. We've been over the signs.
Right, we've been over the signs.
I guess I can do some copy paste.
Okay, so let's just put an informational sign.
Okay. So here's a non-informational sign. Here's an informational sign. Okay. This could be something along the lines of, let's see, sign of here. This would be something like you are here and the town is there. That's an informational sign.
That's an informational sign.
That's just telling them where to go. That is, you are physically directing them.
Right.
You know.
And then the directional sign, well, goodness, it's a road sign.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are right there. This is also a directional sign.
That right there is a directional sign, yeah.
Directions. Mm-hmm. You could have this one say something along the lines of lake water to the east, cliff climb much to the west. There you go.
There you go.
There you go. So again,
yeah,
you're not saying go here to get to the cliffs, go here to get to the lake. You're just giving them a general direction. And if you want to be really like, if you want to snark at whether or not my directions are good, you could just say southeast. I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is you're not saying go here to the you're not saying, this sign does not say go to the docks and climb on the invisible boat.
It doesn't say that.
This is just saying lake water to the southeast. Okay.
Identification. I would think that for this particular example in the nature, that when they first enter down in the southern exit, that text would pop up and says, nature preserve,
right?
Forest trees. There we go.
Forest of trees.
Forest of trees.
Best description ever.
Yeah.
So they would go here, and you could have a picture of a tree on here. Bring it into GIMP, put a picture of a tree.
Yeah.
Or you could have say, welcome. To the forest of trees.
Yeah.
And that's all you're doing right here.
All that is
you're giving them information. You're not telling them going in here, do this, do that. You're just giving them that because if they spoke to a ranger earlier and your player says, how do I get to Teal's Well?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, Teal's Well is in the forest of trees. So they enter into this area. Welcome to the forest of trees. They now know they're in the right place. They can now find their way.
Yes.
You have not told them where to go. You are showing them where to go. And then a regulatory sign would be something like no hunting.
Yeah, no hunting.
No hunting.
Yeah.
Same thing with our urban center. Nothing really is different. We're just reinforcing what we've already been over, guys. Does that work? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. So a sign here could be, we see direct signs are first, I believe?
Yes, we have informational signs.
Okay, so an informational sign could be something along the lines of right here. Oh, there you go. Could be right here, and this sign could be something along the lines of. Actually, we're going to do both regulatory and.
Oh, there we go.
We're going to do both. So this is regulatory and informational. Tank yard to the north. No entry. So again, you're not sticking yourself into one thing. You're not saying I can only have an informational sign. I can only have a regulatory sign. You're combining them.
You're combining those two.
You're combining them. Which you want to try to do if it mimics real life. Again, guys, if it mimics real life, if it's organic, as Teal was saying, do that. Do that right here. Okay. You could have a sign right here. Say something along the lines of, and this would be directional.
Yep.
To bar.
To bar. Yeah.
So this would be something. The Hot Cat South.
There we go.
Or something like that. So it's a sign pointing to the Hot Cat. You could also have a picture of a cat on there. That kind of thing. So,
and then lastly, regulatory, which you had there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You had
and
that.
you could have another regulatory also just be a warning. Like you could have this regulatory here be watch this. There we go.
There's a warning. Yeah.
Warning. Watch out for potholes. So if the character is in a car, if you're using a car mechanic and you've put potholes in a way that can cause damage to the car or slow it down, you putting a regulatory sign here gives them warning that they're about to enter into a bad place.
That's right. And then lastly, identification would be those little signs on the building.
Yeah, these are you already got them.
Yeah.
Good job there.
So that's it.
Yep. All right, let's catch up a little bit on chat and then we'll move on to the last part of signs.
Okay. So, Forrest of Spaghetti. Hey, EK.
Hey, man. Good to see you.
And Riku. Hey.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, oh, yes. In some bad guy zones, the Mountain of Bones.
The Mountain of Bones.
Gotta have the Mountain of Bones.
For all the people who joined, we're teaching wayfinding techniques. Unfortunately, if you're jumping in late, you're going to want to catch the opening lecture because these God tier amazing maps build off the lecture that Teal and I gave.
Yeah.
So if this looks like janky, and we said it was going to be janky, if it looks janky, it's because we're just going over examples of what we talked about for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah. The topic is wayfinding elements for you guys who just joined us.
And honestly, I think at this point we don't need to do interior signs. I mean, we could.
We could, but
I mean, it's pretty much something we've already gone over in depth. We you know what? We can, for the sake of completion, so we can get our completion bonus.
Completionists.
Yes, let's have our sci-fi.
I like that one.
You like this one right
I
here?
like that one.
The disco?
Yes, disco.
I'm not going to blind our people, Teal. We're going to have our corrugated metal.
Okay.
This is sci-fi is corrugated metal, right? All sci-fi is corrugated metal.
All of it, yes.
This is how you sci-fi. With green walls.
With green walls.
Yes.
It is all science fiction.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. This is the best.
Very futuristic.
Very futuristic. And we're going to go ahead and make this into, we're going to go ahead and do it 2 pixels thick because apparently that blinds KV. So there we go. All right. So here we have our area here. And we're just going to build this as your typical top tier dungeon.
Yeah.
You know, where you walk into an area and... You know, the bad guys are in one place and, you know, you have to go into the other in order to rescue the head scientist, who also happens to be your mother, because plot twists are amazing. So here we have our top tier dungeon right here.
That's it.
Top tier dungeon. And this is a bunch of filled space I don't feel like dealing with. So, top tier dungeon design, guys. Top tier dungeon design. The concepts are the same. At this point, I feel like we are kind of repeating ourselves, but just to show you that it doesn't matter where you're at. In fact, here's a good example of a regulatory sign that isn't even a word.
Yeah.
Look at this. Right here, you're saying... Oops. Right here, you're saying steel can't design anything. Right here, what you're saying is, this is the nuclear sign. This sign right here would be regulatory. Don't go here, because this place will make you glow in the dark.
Right.
So a person can make that inference just from seeing that sign. You know, if you have your bars of lasers there, you could have something along the line of this sign right here, say, you know, warning. Now I'm gonna combine the two. High voltage lasers, please deactivate first. There you go.
Yeah, that's
it. So you've actually given them an instruction on how to get through your dungeon by having that sign there. That sign tells them something to do without saying, "Hey, dummy, go over here into the lab and deactivate the lasers." Where's that? Where's that lab? There's a lab. There's a lab. It's a casino lab.
It's a casino lab.
It's a casino lab. You know. You know, if we take the casino lab and we add some anime posters here, we can. We can say this is definitely a lab.
Yes.
So, but you could have, another sign be over here. That would be something along the lines of not a calendar. We can say that it's a sign. That looks like a sign.
Yeah.
All right. But we could say that this right here is, totally legit computer. And it would say something along the lines of code needed for access.
So
you're giving them, again, this is directions. You're using this sign here to let them know. They can infer. You don't need to have them go up to here and go, if I click on this computer, I might be able to access the code enter the code to access the laser grid. All
Yeah.
you're doing is you're using that, you're letting them infer. So again, everything we've just gone over, guys, with psychology, strategies, and signage is teaching you all how to apply the techniques so that the player goes through the level on their terms. You're co-opting the level experience.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what you need to be doing.
Right. Okay, so we're going to open this up to questions, guys. This is where you all can say, hey, what about this? What about that? We'll try to show you or kind of talk you through things. If you want to go back and see any of those amazing maps, let us know. We'll do our best to answer things as succinctly as possible.
And Touch does have a good comment. If you consistently use the nuclear sign, consistent signage does a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's say that your game has a radiation mechanic, and specifically this dungeon has high radiation areas where if you go in, your character will die within 3 seconds.
Right.
So the 2 ways that you can warn them is, one, they go in, the screen starts to glow green, you hear a warning bell, and a little counter appears. That's very intrusive, but you could do that. However, if you put the signs right outside of that area, they don't have to look for the subtle green glow. They see the sign and they're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then when they have to go through later on, and it's a long area and there's no way they're going to get through in 3 seconds, they'll start to infer, maybe I need to find either a way to shut off the radiation or find a way to protect myself.
Exactly.
And when they find a hazmat suit later on in your level, they'll know, now I can go through this dangerous corridor.
Yeah.
And I remember where it is because it had a nuclear sign, because it was in a lab that I remember, because the lab was made as its own district, the lab district.
Yes.
And they're exploring the level on their terms. Yes, absolutely, Riku. Great mechanic. Best mechanic ever. But let's catch up a little bit. It's easier for Teal to read than I am.
There's something to catch up on.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, the player doesn't have to have object permanence. Yeah, you're correct. You guys in chat have been hitting the nail on the head. I think you all are picking up on very quickly what it is that is wayfinding and how that is good level design. As we said at the very beginning, there is no right way to do this. There is no one right way to do this. Level design and game development is an art and a science. Science constantly evolves. Ergo, best level design practices constantly evolve.
Yeah.
We're learning. Everyone learns. Even developers who've been doing this for 20, 30 years are learning better ways to do it. So you need to keep your education up.
Yeah. Just keep learning and keep drawing and keep making.
Yes, keep making.
Touch says, I've talked about this with consistently, lootable containers.
Yeah, if you never have anything on a bookcase.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then people will just stop looking at bookcases.
Whenever Teal and I play an RPG Maker game on this channel, we talk about developers setting a precedent. If the objects are never described, the precedent has been set not to examine every object. If every object is described, or almost every object is described, you set a precedent to search. So the same thing as what Touch is talking about is true. If you never put a book, an item, anything on a bookcase, you are setting a precedent never to search.
And that leads me to the point of exploration. You want to lead the player into exploring your level, exploring your world. So put object descriptors in, put lootable containers, all that.
Yes, and when you do all of that, when you create that, as the Jack says, it creates immersion.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want your levels to be an obstacle the player has to overcome to play the game in advance. You want the levels to be an experience that they go through and that they live in order to feel the life in your world.
Yeah.
That is why we've been saying this on season 2 of our podcast since we started it. The most important thing is the UX, the user experience.
Yes, it is.
That is king. If you can do a good UX, your game will be very well received.
Yes, it will.
It doesn't have to be gorgeous. It just has to be fun.
Yes.
It has to be fun. It has to be a good experience.
Yeah, and Wrath echoes what Touch said. Consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
Keep it consistent.
Yeah. Remember, you can create any rules you want in your game, but follow your rules. Don't break your own rules without a very good reason.
Please do not, unless there's a very good reason.
Right, and then make sure the player understands you've just broken the rules and then they can infer the reason why.
Yes.
So if you have, like, for example, a level that shifts, and you've never had your level shift, let them know it's because they click on an orb.
Yes.
And then the player can say, okay, when I click on this orb, the level shifts. Maybe there has to be a pattern. There has to be a way I can use this to get through this level.
Right.
You don't just want to have it on there and have them not realize the level is shifting. So, again, there's no one right way. There's no one wrong way. There's just the ways that make your player experience the level best, and that's what's important.
Right. So, yeah.
I think that's it. If we have any other questions, or you guys want to see any other examples, we'll kind of keep it open for a moment or two more before we start closing. I know this is not our usual thing. We usually do play RPG Maker games and analyze them, and we are going to be going back to that.
Sure.
But tonight and tomorrow night, Studio Blue is presenting actual ways to work on development. So we are going to be doing this again tomorrow. I'll let Touch send that information up because that's what the Touch does.
Right.
But yeah, we wanted to give a chance to kind of actively teach you all specific things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Jack, story is also important,
yeah.
and that's outside the scope of this particular
right.
broadcast.
Yeah, you need to have good story, good characters, believable characters, relatable characters, a story that's understandable, even if it's eclectic and surreal.
Yeah.
They can draw their conclusions of what the story is. The graphics and the sound have to complement your world. So whatever they're hearing and seeing, it doesn't have to be AAA style graphics.
Right.
It has to communicate the experience. The level design is important. The mechanics, the balancing, it's all important. There is no part of a game that you get to ignore as a developer. For the people in the back, there is no part of the game that you should ignore. It's
Thank you.
all important.
It's all important.
Thank you, KB. I'm glad you like it as well. We actually haven't done a creator classroom in a very long time.
Very long time.
And that's why we had the RPG Maker Theater intro, because I actually haven't... I have to find the old creator classroom intro.
I don't even know
again.
where we put it.
It's somewhere on one of our hard drives. It is a lot, EK. There's a lot. Speaking specifically to the RPG Maker community, a lot of people who we've run across are doing this because they want to tell a specific story.
Yeah.
They have an idea in mind for an RPG. RPG Maker gives them that nostalgia boost, which is awesome. And they want to create a specific story. Here's the thing. Even as a hobbyist, you should put your best foot forward because other people are going to be playing it. If you want to make a game, and you want that game to just be your passion project where you're telling your story, and you don't want to put the effort into it, that's fine. But if you release it to the public, it's going to be open to scrutiny and criticism.
Yeah, just remember that everything you release is part of your brand, is part of your reputation.
Yeah.
So you release good stuff, you have a great reputation. If you release crap, well, you're not going to have a good reputation.
Right. And we're all learning. Teal and I learn all the time. Wayfinding is something that is new in the sense that compared to what I learned when I was doing this years ago, is still kind of new. This is kind of new in comparison.
Yeah.
However, to you guys, this should be something you put directly into your paradigm as developers, because some of you all are approaching this as your first couple of games. So, yeah, evolve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything's evolving.
Yeah, Jack, we check out some of our our content on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I guess this is where we do the plug.
Yeah.
So above, you're going to see a YouTube channel link and a Twitch channel link. We are Steel and Teal of Studio Blue. We teach the theory behind game development.
Yeah.
We don't often do how-tos like we did here. We will go over specific examples when appropriate. We have shifted recently to streaming out of VR chat, so our virtual avatars are now very animated. On Thursdays, we always stream a forum where we talk about specific topics related to both the industry and game development, and allow you guys to choose topics as well. And we just talk back and forth using our experience to kind of help guide you along the theory of best practices.
Yes.
You know, why should you do things a certain way? Teach you to fish instead of giving you a fish. We stream live and we put our content on YouTube. On Fridays, we do an AMA. Sometimes we talk about gaming and anime and fandom or whatever. Sometimes we answer more game develop questions. We've actually had a couple of chat members recently talking solely about stuff they've wanted to talk about that they didn't have time in our forum. So they use the AMA to kind of say, hey, what about this? What about this? I have a question about this.
Exactly.
And our AMAs are for that. On Saturdays, we do stream a podcast that goes up on the various podcasting things. We are looking to, on Wednesdays at times, add playing in VR chat with you guys.
Yeah.
Where we do things like either Among Us or a horror map.
Because we're promoting VR.
Yeah. We are huge VR to VR tubers now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so follow that. And then our Discord link as well. Our community is very good. We are a very positive community. We are a critique server, so if you put something on the server, please understand it will get a measure of critical feedback.
Yes.
Especially if you ask for it. But we work very close with the with Gotcha with Degaka Komodo.
Right.
Touch has been having us stream these games for a while now. On Mondays is when we stream games on this channel.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty much it.
I think you pretty much summed it all up, Steel.
I do talk a lot, guys. Just no Steel does ramble. Okay. One huge thanks to Touch and Komodo.
Yes.
For letting us do this.
Thank you.
You want to read off the thanks to everybody? Here, let me get this so you can start scrolling.
Oh, we got EK, thank you so much. KB Kingdom, The Jack. We got Riku Masamune, Wrath of Wood, Silver Shion, hey.
Yeah, Silver.
Nerd Mansion, and Brian. We got Brian S. Cobb.
Yeah.
And Chris Jewell, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Viatori Tran, human being, yes.
Yes, it is good to see every last one of you. Legit all the love, guys. Legit all the love. Outro time, baby.
Outro time.
All right. If you like what you saw, leave a smack down the like button below. Subscribe to our channel. Consider supporting us on Patreon. Connect with us over Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and we will see you in the next video.
See you next time.